Joey, we are live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Joy Taylor is joining me. I think we may have our best hour of the show today. Joy, how are you?
Doing great.
In 5 minutes, Joe Banner used to run the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. So we got a lot of openings. I'm going to ask him, what would you do with Odell Beckham? Antonio Brown. Would you sign Le'Veon Bell? What do you do with Mike McCarthy, who's been to a Super Bowl? If you have a young hotshot coordinator, I think that stuff. Also, we're going to have fun at the end of the show for about 10 minutes. I'm going to hand out my regular season NFL awards.
Ooh.
We got some different awards we're going to hand out, and that'll be in about 45 minutes. Sean Merriman, too. But let's start with it. It appears Antonio Brown, a wildly entertaining, dynamic, talented player, wants out of Pittsburgh. So let me start with that. Folks, Pete Carroll and Mike Tomlin are known throughout football as guys who can handle egos, guys who can handle divas. And Mike Tomlin couldn't handle Le'Veon, can't handle Antonio, struggles with Big Ben, and Pete got his guys out of town. It doesn't work. This morning, OBJ in New York on the trading block. Show me the Super Bowls for Ocho. The Dallas Cowboys got out of the Dez Bryant business. They won the division. Show me where it works. This is not the NBA, where every draft there is one, maybe two, generally one kid you got to get. You got to sell the farm to get a guy. Half the NFL is undrafted. The SEC alone, you could just draft out of that conference and build an NFL franchise. You are not beholden to any one player. Now, you need to get a quarterback. There's no question about that. But college football now has given us a couple a year. 5 rookies this year, all played, all made an impact. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a history under Mike Tomlin of kind of coddling, enabling stars, if they can't do it, if Mike Tomlin can't handle it, good luck to the rest of you. Because Mike Tomlin and Pete Carroll have been the two kind of star enablers, the ping pong table in the locker room. Players can talk politics. They embrace it. And these two guys, Pete Carroll's like, I'm done with it. Got to the playoffs. I'm getting my guys out of town. Got to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin, I wish I could get my guys out of town. Can't make the playoffs. I mean, Big Ben's saying we're trying to get a hold of a 30-year-old wide receiver who's throwing footballs at us and throwing a tantrum. And again, this is not the NBA. The Steelers, in fact, even have Antonio Brown's replacement on the roster. He just got voted MVP of the team by the players, Juju Smith-Schuster. There are certain things in sports that evolve. There are things in sports that are very valuable, but over time become less valuable. Let's take the NBA centers. You used to have a big center or you couldn't win a title. 3-ball revolution, don't need centers. If you have them, can be useless late in games. Used to be in baseball. I remember as a kid growing up, base stealers. Oh, you got to have a guy get on base, steal a base. Base stealers, nobody wants to take that risk and take a guy off the bases. And in the NFL, diva wide receivers. It's over. Show me the playoff wins for Randy Moss, Ocho, Dez, OBJ, Antonio Brown. They're all on underachieving teams. Seattle's got good. I'm not saying you don't need wide receivers. They've never been more valuable. But the guys in Seattle aren't controversial. DeAndre Hopkins in Houston isn't controversial. Like certain things in sports, you simply, sports evolves. NBA centers aren't as valuable. They're not. I mean, Joel Embiid, they get hurt. They can't shoot threes. They don't control tempo. Oftentimes bad free throw shooters. Base stealers in, Major League Baseball. Used to have one. If you didn't have speed, you were done. Now it's like, why risk the out? It's a home run game. And in football, the diva wide receiver, what is the point? Why? Show me where you need them. Because the Dallas Cowboys got out of the coddling Dez Bryant business. A lot less noise and more playoffs. And worst of all for Pittsburgh is that they knew Antonio Brown was a headache. Ryan Clark used to play with him, and he warned the team, watch out when you pay him.
Quick story. Antonio's going into his third year. You hear that Mike Wallace has turned down his deal.
And I knew already that they were going to offer Antonio. And he's walking past, and I turn to the strength coach, and I say, when you give him money, you're going to create a monster. That day in practice, Antonio and I almost get into a fight because he's saying things to Coach LeBeau. He's screaming at Coach LeBeau, screaming at us defensively, don't touch me, I'm the franchise, this and that, because he already had that mindset. And now with success, with money, these things come. But when it comes to just being a good teammate, when it comes to just being supportive, to understanding that you're trying to achieve one goal, that doesn't matter to him.
Diva wide receivers, absolutely, inarguably, no longer necessary to win divisions, win playoff games, and win Super Bowls. More proof. And with that, via the Coward Global Satellite Network, we bring in Joe Banner for 17 years, the president of the Philadelphia Eagles, the former CEO of Cleveland. Joe, this has been a decade. This has been a dilemma for general managers forever in this league. Super talented player, not always an ideal locker room presence. What would you do with Antonio Brown, Joe?
Well, I got run out of Philadelphia for not putting enough emphasis on wide receivers. So you're preaching to the choir philosophically. Now, here's the difference here, though. They made a decision to keep him. So now next year they can spend $21 million and not have him, or $21 million and have him. So if I was running that team right now, I'm trying to find a way to make peace. I'm sitting back for a month or two. I'm letting everybody calm down. I'm starting with the coach and the GM, who hopefully may not be quite as provocative in his mind as some of his teammates at the moment. But if I had made the decision, if I was in the position to make the decision when they signed to this deal, and same thing with Odell Beckham, I would have done something completely different. But that got me run out of Philadelphia, so that may not be the right answer. You're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the ingredients to what leads to winning big in the NFL, it does not include having to have a superstar wide receiver, and it definitely doesn't include many players that are dragging down the coaching staff and creating a lot of distractions and complications. There's no doubt about it.
I think one of the more intriguing things in the NFL, and Albert Breer was on earlier and compared it to Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. Andy was elevated by excellent supporting talent. Nobody thought he was a superstar. Dak Prescott has a very low ceiling, but he's surrounded by Amari and Zeke and a very good O-line and a terrific front seven defensively. What do you do with Dak? Let's say, Joe, he comes out this weekend and he loses, and, you know, he can make the argument with his agent. He saved the franchise a couple years ago. What would you do if you ran the Cowboys with Dak Prescott?
So if Dak's the next guy that says, okay, I have to be the new highest paid quarterback in the league, which is the trend, even if you're not the best, then I got to find a different answer, because you cannot have a $30 million quarterback and win a Super Bowl unless he is so good that he's elevating everybody else in the team. I'm a Dak fan, but I don't see him in that difference-making role to that degree. Now, if he's sitting there saying, listen, I realize what I am, and I realize what you're going to need to surround me with. So instead of a $30 million quarterback, I'm a $24 million quarterback, I'm a $22 million quarterback, whatever it is, I think Dak can do that. And I think surrounded by the right people, especially the offensive line, which makes both the running and the passing game work, then I would like to try to sign him. I would not want to be the person at the Cowboys right now responsible for signing that contract, because the comments that Jerry's made about keeping him, I promise you the agent has taken note of, written down, and has on tape, and feels like he has a massive amount of leverage.
Right now, Mike McCarthy's sitting out there, a very successful coach, but he's not the hot new young guy like a Cliff Kingsbury or the Sean McVays. We've got this kind of cultural change where everybody's trying to convince me you need a 37-year-old guy, a hotshot offensive guru. What do you make of Cliff Kingsbury, certainly a talented offensive mind in the Jets and Cleveland? What do you make of this trend to go real young offensive with coaches?
Now, listen, I think you're right in emphasizing experience. I think what the ideal mix right now is a guy with experience who can also surround himself with people that are capable of taking advantage of some of the scheme advancements we're seeing that are really helping teams, win. I mean, what the Bears are doing with the talent they have on offense, which is pretty good, even with Mahomes in Kansas City, they're outplaying what is a very talented offense. So if you could take somebody and erase the uncertainty of how good a leader they are, how good a program leader are they going to be, how well are they going to hire, and at the same time have the benefit of some of the scheme benefits that you're talking about, I think you get the ideal guy. So I think there's some guys in college right now My favorite is Matt Rule down at Baylor, who you'd have the opportunity, has a little bit of NFL experience. He's worked for people that are very good. He's turned around multiple programs that were very challenging to turn around. Everybody who's worked for him has a tremendous amount of respect for him. If you could match somebody where you know you've got that experience of leadership, you've got people that have the qualities that the great head coaches have, and then they could surround themselves with the right people, which is what really good coaches know how to do. Maybe you get the best of both worlds, where you get that really strong, established head coach, but you also could take advantage of some of the benefits of the evolution of scheme that we're seeing.
Okay, I'm going to throw I'm going to throw a couple players at you. And if you were running at the New York Giants now, I would move off Odell Beckham and I would shore up both lines, offensive and defensive. I think the Giants, in my opinion, and you faced them for 17 years in Philadelphia, I think they've become a little bit of a fear-based organization, afraid to offend the Mannings, afraid to let go of Odell, who sells tickets. What would you do first with Odell Beckham?
I mean, Odell's cap is the same problem. I mean, they created this situation where the short-term cost of getting rid of him is greater than the cost of keeping him. Now, you could make the case that it's going to cost me the same amount either way. Aren't I better off with these benefits and these assets that I can use otherwise? They're not going anywhere until they do exactly what you said. When we played them and they had the Ernie Accorsis and all the way back to George Young, this team was built around two dominant lines. You could not figure out how to stop that pass rush, and you could not figure out how to get to their quarterback, even if those were your strengths. I mean, we built the Philadelphia team around that, and we still had trouble getting pressure on their plays. Now, over the years, they've gotten away from that, and they've become very focused on their offensive weapons and secondary, these other things. It's not that those things don't matter, but they're really hard to have a big impact on the game until you're able to control the lines of scrimmage. So however they do it, whether that's getting assets from Odell or whether it's using draft picks, whatever cap room they have left, they got to get back to the basics that made the Giants one of the better teams in the NFL for a very, very long time. They've got to get dominant. I tried to do that last year. They made a lot of moves on the offensive line. The fact of the matter is, when they were done, they still didn't have a very good offensive line. And they're not even close to having the defensive line they need to compete against the best teams in the league.
8 job openings. I contend Green Bay's overrated. Aaron's now 35, increasingly brittle. Very little movement, about $45 million cap space. Is the Packers' job the best job? Because that's what I keep reading. I don't believe it.
I'm with you on this one. Listen, you're betting on a GM who's only been there 1 year, had somewhat mixed results in the year that he was there. You're betting on a 35-year-old quarterback who already isn't staying healthy. Very rare that you get older and become healthier. So I think they got to really be worried about that. They've got a number of challenges there in terms of, can you win with a quarterback who's making $30 million a year and maybe susceptible to injury? That's a question with the quarterbacks that are really having huge impact right now. I believe you can, but it's a lot harder. So I think you got to bet on 4 or 5 things that are unlikely to happen. Him staying healthy over the long term, being able to build the defensive line that we were just talking about that you need to have to compete for championships, him staying healthy. So I don't view the Packers as maybe even in the top couple of opportunities that are available in the NFL right now.
Jim Harbaugh, buy it, don't buy it. I mean, I think he clearly showed in the NFL. He took Colin Kaepernick to a Super Bowl. I mean, he turned around 4 different teams. I think he's done a good job at Michigan, perhaps not great. Would you interview him? Would you hire him if you ran a franchise?
I would interview him if he'd let me. I don't think that he's open to that right at the moment, although I think he will be. I got to know Jim because John Harbaugh was with us in Philly for years, and Jim used to come to the games with their dad. I got to know him a little bit then. He may be the most competitive person I've ever met. And when you work in football, to say that, it's quite an extreme statement. And I believe at some point he's going to want to come back and prove that he can win against the best, which is at the NFL, at the coaching level, with all the challenges that you face there. But I just don't see that happening right now. He seems to be comfortable there. The people there seem to really enjoy him. In the past, after 2, 3, 4 years, sometimes he's worn out his welcome. Doesn't seem to be happening at Michigan. The people that I know up there are glad to have him and hope he stays as long as he wants to. So I don't think that's happening in the short term. If I was running a team and he was interested, I'd be extremely interested. I was at the Browns when, you may remember, there was stories about the fact that we had talked to the 49ers about trading for Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. But, yeah, I was the one having the conversations with the 49ers when that was taking place.
2 quick questions. Jets, who's the coach next year?
Mike McCarthy.
I love that. And Le'Veon Bell, where does he land?
I think the most likely spot is Tampa Bay. I know there's a lot of speculation about the Jets, but I just think that wouldn't be the right answer right now. I think that the answer may be better in Tampa Bay, someplace that is a little more established and maybe a little closer to winning than I think the Jets are right now.
Boy, I tell you what, that you're the second person on the show that's tied in that said that, and I think McCarthy to the Jets would be that would make me so excited. I like Sam Darnold. My audience know I love Sam Darnold, and I don't think the Jets have a ton of personnel offensively. Do you like Sam Darnold as much as I do?
I was on the show with you in the spring, and I had Darnold and Mayfield kind of tied at one, so I'm a big Darnold fan. But you're right. I mean, the general manager there has struggled in 4 years to create the roster he should. There's a long way to go, but they have the most important piece, and he looks to be everything people thought he'd be before the draft.
Okay. Great, Joe. I love having you on. 17 years, ran the Philadelphia Eagles, longtime league exec, all sorts of insight. Next time you're out in Los Angeles, I buy dinner, bring you to the set here. I love talking to you.
Sounds great. I'll take it.
All right, great stuff. Joe Banner. By the way, second person on the show said Le'Veon Bell, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's the second person on the show. And by the way, if the Jets, I think Cleveland should hire Mike McCarthy. I think the Jets should hire Mike McCarthy. And by the way, if the GM can't figure it out in New York, then give McCarthy coach with some draft swag.
I don't know which one of these job openings wouldn't take Mike McCarthy.
Everything I read, he's too simplistic. I mean, it's football. This is not Harvard. I mean, this idea, these playbooks. Yeah, New England with Brady is fairly demanding on their wide receivers. I don't buy that. He's like Fred Flintstone out there. I don't buy that for a second. Everybody bailed on Andy Reid. Andy Reid's now the number one seed in the AFC. Okay, Sean Merriman, my NFL awards. I'm going to unveil them in about 25 minutes. In L.A., it's the herd. Car shopping can be confusing. A lot of terms, dealer price, list price, invoice. Go to TrueCar.com, new or used. They'll tell you what the dealers in your area are paying. New or used, TrueCar.com, and check out the true price at TrueCar.com.